Welcome to my first porn video. Haha, I couldn't resist, sorry. Okay, I'm going to start with putting down a base coat. Apologies for getting in the way of the camera here. This is my first crack at making a video, so it's a few lessons to learn. This is just Glidden house paint, semi-gloss. Glidden Essentials is the actual paint. Also notice there's some weird kind of undulating or flickering in the camera. I think that's because I've got a fluorescent light in my studio room there. So hopefully next time I'll not use that light and we won't get that. So right now I'm just tilting the canvas to move the paint around, try and get it centered more on the canvas. I've sped up the camera here a little bit. What I'm doing now is pulling paint out towards the corners and edges of the canvas. This will help the white paint to flow out and cover everything better when I spin it later. Taking a torch quickly over the white paint to pop any bubbles in there. Bubbles are the bane of paint pouring. If they pop later, we'll end up with what look like little holes right through the painting all the way down to the base coat. This is some Cyanine blue. It's a transparent or semi-transparent paint. It's a tube paint. So I'm using this. I'm using a few tube paints. Most of the paints that I use are going to be pigments. So now just give it a quick spin to get an initial spread of the paint around, using a popsicle stick here just to grab some of that paint that's initially starting to drip off the edges. It is going to drip off later, but it's a little too early right now. And I noticed just a quick torch to get rid of some of the bubbles that were in the blue. And I can see that the blue isn't quite centered in the middle of the canvas, so I'm just going to tilt it up and slide everything over a little bit before I start adding some of the other colors. Okay, next up is the first of our Mica Pigments. This is Twilight. TLP is the brand, this little piggy it's called. These are pigments made specifically for acrylic pouring and resin artwork. So very sparkly, really fine mica flakes in it. They're just gorgeous. They look lovely. I've been using them a lot lately. Next up is a Liquitex tube paint, Pyrrole Red. This is a opaque tube paint. It's good to kind of mix up. I like to layer opaque and transparent colors when we're doing pouring. It just really helps to create some phenomenal cells when the paint develops. And just, more red here. Next up is another mica. This is Constellation, kind of a violet, violety blue, purple color. It's really quite nice when it spreads out in the final work. Another tube paint. This is semi-opaque. It's Pebeo, iridescent violet blue. So it looks quite pink going down, but it's a color shifting paint, so depending how the light catches it, it'll actually kind of flash blue. It's another really nice color. Next up is another TLP mica. This is Comet. This is an interference color, so it goes down, it looks white, but when it dries, it's going to dry clear, but the mica powders in it will, depending how the light catches it, will appear either red or gold. It's really nice effect on the final work. just popping a bubble. I noticed there's a big bubble in the Comet when it went down, so get rid of that. And then on to the next color, another little piggy, Grenache. It's a deep red, and kind of a dark wine red. Really nice sparkle in it. It looks great in a finish work too. I like using that one. Now just a quick torch over all of those before I move on to the cell activators. So these are what actually creates the cells. It's a different mixture of the paint, using some different additives, and just use a tiny little bit. I might have actually been a little skimpy on the cell activators on this piece, but I start with a turquoise green, and then I'm going to come in with a second cell activator on top of that, which is a Amsterdam oxide black. And just a little bit of this. I am going to come back and give a second drop of that, but like I said, I think I probably should have used just a little bit more of the cell activators. You'll see in the next step when we break out the hair dryer and blow the paint out that it could have used more of the cell activators in the final, but it still turned out good. So now we're going to move on to the blow dryer, and we're just going to use it to blow those cell activators out across the top of the other paints that we put down. And this is where you'll start to see some of the gorgeous cells that come out of that. So this is really where the rubber hits the road, as it were, for this technique. This is a bloom technique. You can see there in the turquoise some of the cells already starting to pop up. It's just all the chemistry of the paint that causes that. So now I need to give it a little time. You saw the camera jump there. Just kind of let it sit and let those cells kind of develop. I've got the video on double time here, and you can see now how some of those big cells have developed. What I'm doing here, I've taken a straw, and there was a spot that was a little heavy on the black cell activator, and I'm just using the straw to blow it out, spread that out a little bit more, and allow the paints beneath to kind of work their way through and create more cells there. I didn't want a big sort of blob of black in the middle of the painting. So now I'm just kind of waiting, giving it time for more cells to develop, and I don't know what I'm babbling about here. I did do voice recording while I made the painting, but it didn't sound very good, so I decided to redo the audio. Now, while it's developing more and giving more time for those cells to develop, I'm just using a palette knife to pull some more of that white paint out onto the dry spots of the canvas. We want that white paint to really serve as kind of a lubricant to allow the other paints to just slide across the top of it. If the colors hit the dry canvas, they won't slide. They'll just kind of start rolling over top of themselves, and we'll lose some of the nice effects of the paints interacting with each other. So I'm also trying to get a little bit on the edge of the canvas, but I sort of realized I didn't need to do that. It's all going to get spread out when we spin it, which is going to be the next step. So I went back to regular time on the camera here, just so you can get an idea of the speed that I'm actually spinning. You see that was a light spin just to start. You can see it did spread out a bit. We did get it coming over the edge of the canvas on one side, but I'm going to spin it again kind of slowly the other direction. And Usually for the first initial spins, you want to spin one way, then the other, so that it doesn't alter the shape of the cells too much. Otherwise, you get really oddly shaped cells, and we'd like them to kind of remain more circular. And here you go with a more energetic spin, and you can see now that the paint's really spreading out and sliding across that white almost all the way. We've almost covered the whole thing. There were a couple spots you can see that didn't get completely covered after those first initial spins. So I just let it finish, and then was contemplating whether I would leave it and just leave that negative space, or whether I wanted to keep spinning and cover the whole canvas, which ultimately I decided to do. So I think pretty quick here I speed up the camera again, just because I sort of decided that I am going to do that. And actually, I'm here. I'm tilting it just to see how much movement is still left. Give me an idea of how much paint is left on the canvas. You don't want to leave too much on there, or else when it dries, we'll end up with cracks as the top dries before the bottom layers, and then get nasty cracks. So I think I've sped up the camera quite a bit here, and we're just going to go through the remainder of the video, just giving it some good spins to ultimately get, yeah, there we go, 4 times. Ultimately get the paint covering all of those white spots and completely cover both the top and the edges of the canvas. So here I've got the whole canvas is covered with paint now, and that's kind of the final look. The last step I'm doing here is just taking my palette knife and scraping excess paint off of the edges. This is the paint that's dripping off. It's viscous enough that the weight of that paint sliding off the edges will actually continue to pull paint off the top of the canvas, and it'll really, as it continues to dry, you'll end up with a really distorted painting, and it'll look nothing like it does right now, which is how we want it to look. So yeah, that's it. Just clean up all those edges. And here we go in. We'll take you in for a close-up. Sorry for the jittery camera, but I wasn't really sure what I was getting. My GoPro doesn't have a screen on it. I've got an older one, so I was just kind of hoping to capture some of the cells and things up close. Turned out pretty good. See a couple of spots there, little bubbles that didn't get popped. So we've got a couple of white spots. There's a good shot of the cell activators in the middle, black and turquoise. Turned out pretty good. And that's it for my first Pourn video. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.